All right, and welcome back to the channel. On this particular video, we are going to be discussing. Previous video, I talked about why you might get out of a game. In this video, I want to talk about why you might get into one and maybe some suggestions or ideas of ones or thoughts to consider. I know, at least me as myself, I recently just sold my Legion army as of, at time of recording, about 2 weeks ago. I'm looking at selling a few other things. I'm not necessarily mentioning exactly what, but a few other things. Things I know I'm keeping. Of course, I'm keeping my Conquest. Probably keep my Titanicus. Not necessarily because I play so much anymore, just because I really like the way I painted it, and I kind of feel weird getting rid of that. And a bunch of the other games, it would be stuff I haven't touched in quite a while. I still have some X-Wing stuff. I'm just really not going to get into all of that. So I'll still get rid of things, but I thought about when I made that video and I said, well, you know, there was a discussion of what gets you out of a game, but what decides to put you in one? Or maybe more importantly, you've decided you want to either pick up miniature wargaming in general, or you want to start something new. Your life has changed in such a way and you just want something different. How do you go through that thought process? So that's really what this video is going to be about. I'll do the little stuff at the beginning, of course. If you're watching this on YouTube, of course, likes, comments, subscribes, all those kinds of things really do help us out if you haven't already. I know it's been a little bit light this week. I usually try to put something out on Wednesday as well. Just didn't. It was my 1 week off, so I actually used my week off to do week off stuff, which is mostly work outside. But we do have that Patreon. I don't bring it up as much, but we do have that mostly just because we don't put out quite as much because, or at least for the last little bit, it's just me until Steve's schedule gets a little bit better and Dan's home gets a little calmer with having a second child and all. If you need anything from Conquest for Parabellum Games for the game of Conquest, we do have a discount code in the show notes below. It's Terrain Kickers. You can use that. You save 10%, helps us out as well. So all those. Okay, that's all out of the way. Let's get to the actual stuff then. Okay. A few weeks back, I did a video about why to get out of a game. And I did that because I was selling out of a game or two that I had. And like I said, I'm still going to be selling out of a few just because I know by looking at it, a combination of things. There's not really a community for some of those games near me. Like I said, I got rid of my Legion because you can't really find a lot of Legion games right near me, at least the stores I go to primarily. I could probably still get it, but maybe it's a little bit tougher. I kind of like more of the, I kind of show up, like my local store. I show up, and they're playing a variety of games, and I have most of those games. I can just, okay, we're playing this day. Let's go ahead and do that kind of thing. I don't schedule quite as much as maybe some other people do. Loss of community, like I said, the game could go away, or it changed in a way that you don't like, or the people around you don't play it or can't play it, or you can't find games, whatever it may be kind of thing. And desire, maybe you just don't feel like playing it anymore. For me, that's kind of what Legion was. I have nothing against the game. I like all the changes they did. I got too much other stuff going on, and if you are like my 6th priority of games, am I going to get to it? No. So I might as well just chop it off rather than, and then use that money to support the other games that I am much more active into. I've gotten to the point where I don't want to just I have like tons of painted models sitting around if I'm not going to do anything with it. Yeah, it looks nice, but I can take pictures and remember that. But if they're just going to sit there, I was never a collectibles type of person other than, so when I was little, I did collect, obviously, like, certain playing cards. I actually had like the full set from Terminator because why not? That's used to, but I think it was Topps what they used to do. Had that one, had the one from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like I want to say it was like second movie, as well as, of course, a bunch of X-Men cards and all. So, but other than that, I don't have any of those kind of collections anymore. I'm not a collector kind of person. And so you could be wanting a new game or starting a game in general because the other things that you're involved with are gone now, or because you don't have interest in them, all those sorts of things. Could also be that your interests change. Could be that you liked sci-fi, went to fantasy, vice versa kind of thing. I find maybe it isn't always true, but for some reason it seems to be true. If anyone finds that this is entirely the opposite in their areas, please do let me know because I'm curious. But at least in my area, what you tend to find happen is as people get older, they tend to like historicals more. And I find that as myself as well. As I've gotten older, like when I was younger, I don't care. None of that matters. Like, I guess I don't necessarily want to say too realistic, but based on the real world, had no sway to me. I wanted crazy high fantasy of dragons and dwarves and elves and stuff like that. Or I want the far-flung future and the possibilities and problems that leads to. Those are the sorts of things that I enjoyed. But as I've gotten a bit older, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should look at Flames of War. Oh, because they were playing V for Victory the other day. That did look like a lot of fun. That for some reason that matters more to me now, and I don't know what that is. And I will say, at least anecdotally, and for people who know me personally, I do not normally like anecdotal stuff. I find too many times people rely upon that to give an impression everywhere. But I will say, from, I don't know, the 6 to 7 game stores I've been to across Jersey and the different discords I'm on and the groups that I've been a part of, it does seem much more common that when you are older, you care more about historicals, or you play more historicals, or are more curious about playing historicals, whatever level that may end up being. I think it skews younger for people who are either, military focused or from a military perspective. So maybe they were in the military, the parents were in the military, something like that. Or it could skew also because your parents or father, don't want to rule out mothers. Mothers could reveal this as well, but at least usually more commonly male, this particular hobby. But you see because like, well, I was into it. I got my kid into it. So that's why they like that sort of thing. Not a guarantee, but that's what I kind of see. And I do realize, especially me, as I've gotten older, my tastes in games have changed a little bit. What I used to be okay with, I'm not quite as okay with anymore. And we'll get into a little bit of that when we talk about considerations, especially as someone who, there's some different games that are either out or coming out or have picked up in some different areas, and whether or not decide to pick those up. I said this video also could work for you if you haven't played a miniatures game before, and at the end I'm going to kind of make some suggestions. Obviously though, if you haven't played things before, you want to do more research, and I'll talk about what that kind of means. Alright, so let's get into some considerations. First consideration to make if you are deciding or looking at maybe pick up a new game is theme versus gameplay. So let's say you're looking at a particular game and you're trying to make decisions about it, or just trying to decide amongst a variety of games. When I talk about theme versus gameplay, do you care more about the setting, the world, the environment, the story that wraps it, or do you care more about how the game is actually played? Which part gives you more enjoyment? Now, for me personally, I have nothing against people who care more about theme, but I care more about gameplay. And here's my sort of thought process on that. If a game has an awesome theme, but the gameplay does not work for me, and it could not work for you for a variety of reasons. Reality-wise, pause there for a second, trying to think of games that I like the theme, but not really the gameplay of. I wouldn't go as far to say Infinity. It's about to get a new edition, but I'm always back and forth. I always like the idea of Infinity more than necessarily the game, and that's just me. I could probably say the same thing for Legion. I'm a big Star Wars guy in general, but just the game itself, it never hit in such a way that it wanted to be my premiere to play. Because I don't mind helping build communities. I've done that for a variety of games, but even though it was fun, it never just quite got there. I'm trying to think of other examples that were just really, really rough. Ninth edition 40K. I've always said the worst thing about 40K is the game. The setting, the environment, the surrounding of it is amazing. But 9th edition, I think I played once and I never touched it again, and I never cared once. It never bothered me, the fact that I never tried it again. Honestly, I was kind of happy that I didn't. 10th's a bit different. 10th I'm enjoying more, and I'm going to do something separate about that. But I care more about gameplay. Reason being, if a game is fun, then I can find the fun in the fluff, the story, things like that. So, when you're playing a game versus a person, you can help make that narrative. I know a lot of people do narrative style gaming. They don't necessarily do that. We walk up, throw down 2 armies and, hit each other and see what happens. A lot of people do. I was watching a battle report the other day while painting. I don't remember what channel it is. But they were doing, it was a First Blood battle report for Conquest, and it was a narrative theme. It was like, hey, you're invading a Dweghome space, and it's 2 non-Dweghome armies, but there's some Dweghome forces there as well, and the mission had to do with doing something around them. I'm not going to go into too much detail of that. But okay, let's say you didn't like the world of Conquest. Well, we just came up with a cool scenario that makes a reason for us to be able to play our armies and have this fun thing. We gave a purpose to it all. And at the end of the day, if you really don't like the theme, and theme is more than just models. If you really don't like the models, don't get invested. Don't go into something you absolutely hate, of course. But if you don't like the theme, you can forget about the theme. You can apply your own theme to it. There's a lot of systems out there that are model agnostic. So you could always even go that way if you prefer, like, oh, I like this sort of, the world and stuff like that. I don't care about the model. Okay, you can swap out the models. But I care more that the game is fun. And the reason being, because if I'm going to spend, 10 hours putting together a force and painting and stuff like that, and it could take a lot longer. My OCRs were probably about 10 hours to paint total. Actually, from start to finish was probably about 15 to paint up and to build and paint the entire army. Maybe a little bit longer, but maybe like 20, but not forever because of the styles that I'm doing them. But if I didn't enjoy like the gameplay at all, then you're not going to get me invested just by having cool scenarios and ideas, because it's not just going to be fun. We've all played games in the past, or maybe if you're brand new to this, most of us have played games in the past where, say, it just goes super lopsided, that one particular game. Well, that's fun then if I'm playing against a friend, because we can have fun discussions about it and there's more conversation. We can make an enjoyment out of it. But if that were to happen each and every time, or it's happening against random people, I'm not having fun then. The story can be come up with. The story can be in what happens in the game. Oh man, you can't believe, like, I needed this thing to happen and it did or it didn't, kind of thing. We all have stories of the time when our dice loved us or our dice failed us, or we got the exact thing that we needed. I rolled a 15 dice. I only got 2 successes. He saved them, or I got all these things that hit and he rolled absolutely insane, or something like that. We all have those sort of stories. That can make a game more interesting. However, if the gameplay is garbage, I'm not going to care what happened that time. Actually, hero clicks. There's a thing I just thought of. Hero clicks, as maybe it's different now. Haven't had anything to do with it in a while. But a while back in hero clicks, it definitely had that sort of feeling of, here's a couple dice rolls, and they're the only ones that are going to matter. Like, we'll do a whole bunch of stuff, but at the end, if I win this roll and you lose this roll, that kind of might be it. I don't care the theme you put around it. That's not fun to me. I don't like games that have giant spikes or have the very high potential of giant spikes. So something that only rolls, a dozen dice, a couple dozen dice, not as much. When you're having to roll a bunch of them, now it evens things out more, and it does make for those more of, well, I had this great thing happen, and then you had this great thing happen, and that sort of back and forth. That makes those fun stories and fun interactions. So I prefer gameplay than theme. I can have fun with a fun game and make up a story. But if you give me a cool story, but your game is garbage, I'm not going to bother playing it. Maybe I'll paint it, but I already got too many things to paint anyway. All right, so theme versus gameplay. Another big thing, this especially applies for people who've been in for a while, and if you're new, maybe not quite as much, but your experience in games and knowing what you want. If you're looking for, say, your first game, and later in this video, I'm going to do some suggestions of games, and lo and behold, I'm going to pick some ones that are fairly largely known. I will try to pick maybe some more obscure-ish choices, but I'm picking some pretty big ones just because if you're looking at games, they're probably the ones that are easiest to get into because there's going to be people around, there's communities around it, there's usually plenty of support in terms of models and other things like that. There's going to be resources online where you can go look up and read about it and watch painting videos, all those sorts of things. There's this sort of, this I guess is the wrong sort of term, but there's this whole universe almost around that. I mean, some of them might be a bit more in the zeitgeist kind of thing, but essentially there's a world to it rather than just like, hey, it's me and my friends and we play this super obscure game that no one's heard of, or effectively no one has heard of. So the more experience you are in games, the better you are at knowing the sorts of things that you like. But more importantly, and this is something I say to my wife when we're sitting around trying to figure out dinner, because, hey, in case anyone's younger who's watching this, who's not married, that's what your life becomes. There's a variety of other things, but a large amount of it is trying to figure out what the two of you people are going to eat. But it's almost more important to know the things that you don't want than the things that you do. What don't you like in a game? If you know you don't like high fantasy, it's just a little too unrealistic. I'm not a big fan of, say, dragons or something like that, whatever it may be. Then you know to discount any of those games. Don't even bother looking at them. Again, if they maybe have good gameplay, but if you're a person who no, this sort of thing always bothers me, it would bug me, don't go anywhere near it. I always do feel it's better to know the things that you don't like than the things that you do, because the things that you do like can change, but the things that you really don't like tend not to change. For an example, so saying about things that I don't like, I don't like alternate history, or at least historical alternate history. Some of the future stuff is kind of can be neat, but historical alternate history, that's not a thing that interests me. I don't want to say, well, oh, it's not historical, but we're just going to change a few of the things and these people won instead, and now you have a whole game around it. That's not a thing for me. So games like Wild West Exodus or Mythic Americas, those just don't interest me at all. The games could be great, but if I really, really don't enjoy the theming to it, there's no way that I'm going to enjoy what the game is. I said, I know gameplay to me is more important, but I can't hate the theme. I don't have to love it, but I can't despise it, because if I despise it, I'm not going to find fun in the gameplay, because there's going to be other things about it as well. If you really don't like the sort of theme that it has or that sort of piece, then it's going to also tailor to me to the types of models. I don't like those sorts of things. Okay, so I'm not going to enjoy the models, not going to enjoy what the game looks like. How great can the gameplay really be? Probably not nearly enough. So, well, maybe at the end we'll talk about some high-level decision-making process here, but you hopefully know some of the ideas that you like and you don't like. If you are very new to wargaming in general and you have no idea what you like or you don't like, my big suggestion to you, watch some videos. Go on YouTube, look up the game that's of interest to you, and even just thumb through some battle reports. You don't even have to watch it to understand it. Ideally, before you decide to fully dive in, you will. But let's say, if you have a local game store that you can go talk to the people, even better. But even if not, say it's a random night, when no one there's playing or whatever it is, and you want to learn something, go watch some battle reports. Watch 10 minutes, pick it up right in the middle, and judge. Does it look fun? Do I like the look of the models? Do I like the sort of theme around it? If I watch for even 20 minutes, do I like the way I see the interaction going? Big things that you can see even if you don't understand the rules to a war game. Are they going back and forth? Is it seeming that one side is doing more than the other side in that particular thing? So are you doing just full turns, back and forth deployment? Is it large scale skirmish? Future fantasy, anything else like that? Those sort of ideas can come out, and you can figure that out, I think, without even understanding it. If I sat down and watched a game now at this point as someone who's experienced in war games, and you didn't teach me the rules first, I could get a feel for what seems to be happening and whether or not that seems to be fun. When I learned, say, Arena Rex, I think the first way I learned Arena Rex is I just watched the battle report. And by watching that, I was able to pick up, not every detail, but I was able to pick up enough of the ideas that are happening to tell me that, yes, I do like this game. It does seem interesting. Now let me do my deeper dive into it. If it doesn't seem good at that cursory level, I feel, at least personally, there's a low chance it's going to be good when you really get into it. I think the reverse can be true. Something can look good and then you get into it more and it not be as much, but I don't find the reverse is really that sort of thing. So oh, it looks really bad. Oh, and it turned out to be great. I don't know. Maybe that happens more. I'm not sure which one, but for me, short bit, I can get an idea of whether or not I have any interest. So the more experienced you are, the easier that is. If you're brand new, obviously, besides the very big name ones, I would suggest go to your game stores and see what they're playing and talk to them and watch their game. We've had tons of people do it while we play, 40K or Conquest or Sigmar, and people just say, well, I'm just going to sit here and maybe they'll ask some questions. It's even better if someone can run you through a game, of course, but if you're, and some people do prefer that, and you should absolutely try something out before you end up buying into it if you can. But even just watching a little bit of it and an interaction and hearing that interaction can be very meaningful. Another big thing to keep in mind, are you a leader or a follower? So here's what I mean by that. Some people are bigger at creating the following for a game. It's important to consider, does the game that you're looking at already have a following or following in your area? And if it doesn't, so is this something your play group is playing? Or is there a local store that's playing it? Or is, like 5 or 6 or more people talking about getting into it because maybe it's something new, either because it's a new game or a new game for them? Is there already this sort of grouping pulling together? And if not, are you the type who's going to be able to do that or want to do that? There is nothing wrong with either option. There's nothing wrong with saying that you are not the type because of time, effort, you yourself as a person, whatever it may be, that you don't want to go through the effort to get more people involved in a game, that you want something already well established. There's a reason why, just outside of the game itself, that 40K is so ubiquitous. If you play 40K, you can go to any game store today and get a game of 40K in, probably. Assuming it's not like a cards only store, but you could get that anywhere, probably almost in the world where you see war games played, other than, I'm sure there's some differences, but I'm talking from a very American and Eurocentric viewpoint here personally. But I know Australia has big followings. I know there's reasonably good followings in Asia, all these kind of areas. But if you want to play that, you'll find a game. If you want to play something more obscure, say, for my own sake, Conquest, which in my area is not obscure. That's all over the place. For all intents and purposes, though, it's pretty obscure. You're not necessarily going to find that. So you have to ask yourself the question, is there following? If not, am I the type to put it together? The best, and I'll do a separate thing. I know we've talked about it in the past, but I'll do a separate one discussing how to get a play group together and all, especially if you're interested in a game that just isn't being played where you are. But you know yourself, if you're not going to put in the effort to do it, don't. The worst thing, because I've done this in the past, the absolute worst thing that I feel someone can do in terms of this, you start a game with only like one other person and no one else seems to have any care about it whatsoever. Because that makes it where it's just you and that one other person, and if anything in their life or your life changes, you're both out of it. This has happened to me in the past when I did Dropship Commander or Drop Fleet. There was only like 2 to maybe 3 of us each time. I'm now much more careful about that. If there's only like a friend who seems interested and the other people, it's not even like the case of some people are like, they're waiting around milling about with it, but they're like actively, they don't want to. No, I'm not going to do that. Luckily, there's a lot of online options, a lot of online ways you can play. I'll do that instead. I had that problem with MCP for a bit. I bought into MCP the day it released. And other than some random games here and there, I didn't really play much MCP for a while. It took until probably a year and a half or so ago for it really to hit in my local area, or at least the local area that I go to the most. Which means, like, would I have done that again if I had it again? No, I'd wait. I would just wait until other people got in and then kind of play. So, and this is someone now partway that was through the pandemic, so that made it tough as well. And I'm someone who enjoys trying to build communities, but I'm at a point now where I don't think I could, or at least for the right type of game, maybe I would try. But if it's just something that seems interesting to me, but no one else seems interested, no, I'm not going to bother personally. So it's always worth gauging out, trying to check your friends. How many people are actually interested in the game? How many people seem like they want to get into it? And asking yourself, do you have the bandwidth to really be the champion for it? Because if you don't, pick what's popular. Pick what everyone else is playing, or a lot of the people are playing, or at least there's a good solid community of people that are playing. If you happen to be lucky like I am, who lives in an area where I can reach 4 or 5 game stores within 30 or so minutes, then you have more options. But if you only got one, especially if you only have like a certain game store and it's not a game that they support, before you really start trying to put a following, see if the game store will. Now, I don't know, maybe this is not a controversial take, or maybe it is. A good game store obviously wants to support its people, but they also have to make money. And you should ask them before really trying to push something, because I don't blame a game store that says, hey, if we don't sell it, I can't really have it become a giant thing. Because maybe one, it might be hard for them to sell. Maybe they can't get it wholesale. Maybe the wholesale is garbage. There could be a lot of reasons why they don't support certain games. But if they're not going to support it, and maybe they can't, then me as a player, I'm not going to make that the primary thing that I try to push there because I'm not making money on it. And let's face it, if I want a game store to survive, I want to play or have to play the stuff that they have. And if I want them to bring it in, I have to make it look worthwhile. And the hope is if you have a good game store that they will. That if you're asking them to special order stuff, they can special order it for you. Or maybe they can start carrying a little bit of it if you can get a few people involved or whatever it may be. But I think that's the thought you also have to have. Like, can you get this store support if you do stores? You know, you wouldn't want it to be like, oh, we play blank defunct game. Again, maybe some stores don't care, but to me, oh, we play on, Friday nights. It's always these defunct games that store can't find, store can't make money on, and we fill out the whole place. All right, well, are you buying a bunch of other stuff from them? Because if not, what are they going to want to support that for? That you're potentially taking away space from people who would keep the store afloat. I'm not saying there's not other ways to keep stores afloat. There absolutely is. But I do think if you're trying to really push something, to kind of flesh out your community, you do have to talk to any of the stores that you're in and find out. I know near us, we're a little bit more careful about some of the games that we do now. And the reason we're more careful is because we've had some stuff go on the shelves and sit there for years. So now it's like, okay, does the game have legs? Is the game around for a while? Is there a good amount of you? We'll special order it, but maybe we won't keep much stock until you can prove to us that like you're going to have this continuing need for things. Because retail space that's just sitting there with dead product ain't doing anyone any good. So there's no wrong answer for leader or follower. If you're not the type who wants to get a community started, don't aim for things that you'd have to get a community started for. Like I said, Legion is big right where I am. So if I want to play it, I'd have to go through and do all that. I have too many other things I'm doing. So you know what? That's okay. There's plenty of other good things I could do. Another thought. Do you wait out the hype or do you dive in? So let's take Shatterpoint, for example. Shatterpoint now has been out for a little bit. It was ICV2 rating of, I think, fourth most popular by sales miniatures game last year, behind like 40K, the WizKids D&D miniatures, and something else. I think it was fourth. It might have been third or fourth. I don't remember exactly which number. It's not a flash in the pan. It's sticking around. People are playing it. It's getting bigger, and people are liking it. But there are games that come out, and it's like day one of it. I know for the Song of Ice and Fire Tactics, I play Song of Ice and Fire. Really enjoy the game. Not doing that. At least not in the beginning. I want to see, does the game stick around? What happens to it? Does it get support? Do people follow it? If that's the same reason why I don't do Kickstarter miniatures, I will do it for board games, but I won't do it for miniatures because you don't know what's going to happen. Look at Relic Knights. Relic Knights, if you did that Kickstarter, they gave you like a year plus worth of models. And then nothing happened for a year and the game was just gone. I mean, the models were also kind of not great if you actually had an experience with them. But I don't think miniatures through Kickstarter is a good idea. It worked for Song of Ice and Fire. It worked for Simon, but it worked for Simon because of who Simon is, not necessarily because of the game. The game helped, of course, but Simon has... Okay, this is going back and forth. But Simon has overall been rather good with the idea of understanding how to make a Kickstarter work. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're always good or they always fund to the level that they want or that you enjoy the game, but they clearly understand how to do Kickstarters. So yes, that one worked. But a lot of the other ones, I've seen some other ones and I don't see them stick around. So I personally now am at the point where I want a game around for a while and I want to see it played or interested for a while. Take Imperialis for a moment. It just didn't work in our area. I know we did some content about it. I did a bunch of stuff with it. I still think the game is cool. That's one of the other ones I'll put that I'm thinking about getting rid of. Just because, it's not around. I can't get games in. And when I look at it and what it would be to get other people into it, it's too much of a hill right now to climb for what's going on in my area. I've tried for a while and it just wasn't quite working. And partly it was because you couldn't buy product for a while. There's more stuff now, but there was sort of this release window where everything was sold out. I only got my stuff because I went to PAX Unplugged and they had a lot of it there. So I was able to get mine and another player or two stuff that they wanted. But I know for a while you just couldn't find it. All right, well, if that happens, it's kind of like there was a big hype around it to me, but I think it's really died down. I think it died down for a couple of reasons. You couldn't find it. The game itself, I think, is fun, but I do think you need lots and lots of models and lots of units. So the cost amount is high. The point to dollar ratio is pretty bad. And to get 3,000 points can be lots and lots of money, because a $50 box, depending on what, might not be more than a couple hundred points. It could be less, it could be a lot more potentially, but it might not really be as many points as you would hope. So I remember when they showed the armies out of the White Dwarf and you looked at what was involved in that, you're talking about, you know, hundreds upon hundreds to build out those sort of forces that they had. And we're seeing with the box and more stuff coming out, GW is doing its thing of lots and lots of books as well, or several books. I know they're on Talaran book now, so now they've done the main book, 2 more books. I'm sure there's another one in the works as well. So all those sorts of things around it as well. So you have to kind of consider. So to me, the hype just kind of died down. Same thing happened when Wrath of Kings was a thing. I know in my area, a bunch of people got involved with that, and I did not. I wanted to wait out and see what happened, and it just went away. Went away for a variety of reasons, but it went away. So me personally now, if it's a newer thing, I wait to see what happens. I don't care to get on the ground floor anymore. That's just me. Maybe you do, but I don't. Along the lines of that is obviously longevity or track record. Has the game been around for a while? How often is the game supported? What kind of support does it get? So Isonfire, they're actually, as of time of recording this, in about a week or so, they're giving us the new season cards. So hey, I think it's just about yearly now, or reasonably close to that. Maybe I'm a little off on that, but it seems closer to that now. They do full update on their cards. All right, hey, that's pretty good. Conquest does multiple updates a year. They do main rules updates, I would say probably at least every 6 months, a little bit more often than that, probably every 3 to so months. And then they go back and look at factions and balance and tweak probably on about a 3-month process. GW does it about, the biggest tweaks about every 6 months or so. And there's been times in the past, if you're an old GW player, where it would be years between tweaks. You might go the whole edition with some sort of problem, and it should be the problem the whole edition. So I think part of it is, has the game been around for a while? Is it going to be sticking around? Are you going to suddenly lose it? And even if not, do you like the way that they handle things? Do you like how often they do updates? How often they do releases? For better or worse? So when I take a look at, say, example, I'll use Conquest as my example. They showed us what's mostly, not everything, but mostly going to come out for about the next, at this point in the year, about 5-ish months? And they showed most of it. And they specifically said, like, hey, if you're an Old Dominion player, we know we currently have one model not listed. We know there's going to be other things that come out, but one model that's listed, that's not out. They're like, no, you guys are set for a while. Oh, you play like Spires? Yeah, you're set for a while. Okay. But you know what? That's fine with me, because I do have 2 factions. I have the build-ups of a few others. So, hey, that gives my wallet a breathing room. That gives me time to paint, time to work on them. I'm okay with that. Whereas if you play, say, 40K, if you only have one 40K army, you might be good for, honestly, a year or more. I play Necrons. Our book is out. I don't know when I'm getting the next thing for Necrons. Realistically, other than building up what I already have out of pre-existing things, I might be good until, the better part of another year, realistically. Whereas if I play an army that I know hasn't come out yet or doesn't have their book yet, I know, okay, you're going to get the new book, you're getting new models, you're getting a variety of different things. So how often do you want releases? How often do you want that to be a thing? If you play a game that's much more faction agnostic, when I think of Shatterpoint or MCP, they're much more agnostic about that. Yeah, I could play Brotherhood of Mutants in MCP, and I'll have to take a look. Oh, did this new model, does it matter for that? Oh no, okay, I don't have to. Yeah, but if I'm in there long enough, these other factions are going to look pretty good. And oh, you know what, that character, I've always liked that character. I might as well pick them up. Well, who do they work well with? What sort of faction do they go into? What affiliation? I'll use their terminology. Suddenly I'm buying a whole lot more. If you're the type who, I have a much more fixed budget, I want the things that I want, and then I'm good. Something that's a little bit more limited in terms of factions, or delineated, maybe is a better way to put it, in terms of factions, might be better. When we look at Shatterpoint, a box is half of a force. It's half of what you bring, unless you're playing a premier event, of course. But a box is half of a force. So 2 boxes and you're set. But that also means, ooh, I always, liked Star Wars Rebels. Oh, they're doing a box that's like Rebels characters. Well, I might as well get that because it's like a force. I can just play it. It's legal. Oh, but this other thing, oh, I like that too. And excuse me, it can snowball very quickly, and you can suddenly realize that you own tons and tons and tons of stuff. So looking at that schedule matters. It's the reason why I don't really play CCGs or TCGs. I play a little bit of Star Wars Unlimited because I do like it, and I do. Apparently, there's now like an online client. I might try that out more. But those sort of games that I effectively try to get out of, or I don't try to play at the level of competition, because it's like every 3 months you have to buy tons of new cards. I have other things I want to do, and there's a lack of evergreen in a lot of those. After time, like Unlimited, I don't believe has told us how they're going to cycle yet, but almost all of them are any good TCG cycles, which means the stuff I buy will go bad. And I know what happens sometimes in miniatures games. I know GW has done this, other companies less so. But my model, at least I could still do something with it. I could proxy it as something. If I'm playing with my friends, who cares? But I can't really do that with the cards. You could do that in Magic. There's certain formats that go back far, but not all of them do. And if you want to play some of the more contemporary stuff, that becomes a problem. So, I've played Flesh and Blood in the past. I used to play Destiny, but even that, when I was playing it, I kept up with about the first 3 sets, and then I started falling behind. I would buy, like a box. Okay, and I don't even bother half the time looking at what the rest of the things I could get are. Then when I get in that, because I don't want to chase. If that is your thing, I get it, but it's not mine. So look at the game schedule. Look at the way that they do the game. If, say, they only do yearly updates, and you're the type of person who's going to be really bothered by that, oh, you know what? I'm looking, and I know there's some problems, and they're not getting fixed, and I know they won't be fixed. Stay away. So, obviously, last but not least is models. You have to like the models. You're going to spend more time painting and assembling and all of that and thinking about it and working with them, all that, than playing usually, at least early in the beginning until your stuff is ready. So if you really hate the models, you're not going to like the game. We talked about Relic Knights and how bad their models were. For anyone now, Conquest is redoing some of their old models because some of the old models weren't good. If your original Spires, I can understand why you might not like it. Drones look, Force-grown drones look pretty bad. Personally, they really do. But I know they're going to do new ones at some point. I know the new ones for, I believe it's the Flame Berserkers and all, look amazing. I know the newer kits look absolutely great. I have some of the newer armies and they look spectacular. That's true of like any system, and you don't necessarily have to like the models as much. Some people like more the classic. There's if we look at, not necessarily it's classic, but like a Bushido. Bushido's a game that I enjoy. The models have a bit of character to them and a very different type of character. So maybe like that sort of thing. Like I play, I can't remember the name of the faction right now, but they're birds. And I picked them because I just like the look of the birds. There's a bunch of birds. That's great. I don't really care about the rest of it. Samurai themed, cool. I'm birds. So models matter. You have to like the thing that you're going to be staring at and working on. All right, what I want to do now is I want to run through a very short list of games and things like that. So how to actually do this sort of thing. I'm mostly going to pick popular ones. To be honest, I'm going to pick some that maybe are a little bit out there, but a little bit more popular. I can do a deeper videos related to different games, or actually more obscure games or anything like that. Or if you play a game that you think is somewhat obscure, put it in the comments below. Say what the game is, a little bit about it, all of that. I'd love to hear the types of things that people are playing, especially the games I don't know. A lot of this is shaped by my area and the sorts of games that we play and the sorts of games that I'm interested in. The same way as I know, like East Coast, as far as I know, Wild West Exodus isn't played. Again, I don't really care about it, but it's not played. But if you're on the West Coast, at least at one point, it was pretty big. So like if I was a West Coast player, I might have some different answers here. Like I said, obviously use the internet, use a tool around you. I'm sure I've said this in the past, but it might have been a while since I've said it. When I was starting with 40K, started like 20 years ago. Yeah, probably not quite, but just about 20 years ago. A couple of my friends were getting in. I didn't know the world of Warhammer at all. I'll be honest. I didn't play it as a kid. I didn't really play much of the games. I read a little bit of the books, and I probably played the original Dawn of War. But I didn't really know it well. Then my one friend was like, hey, like 3 of us are getting in. Do you want to get in as well? We have this game store local. Let's do this. And what I did is I went to try to pick my faction because they told me the ones they were playing. He was playing Dark Eldar. Another guy was playing Tau. Another guy was playing Imperial Guard. I said, okay, what am I going to play? And I just went online. I did searches for, Warhammer 40K factions, Warhammer 40K armies, that kind of thing. I actually came across the 2 episodes from the Independent Characters where they went through and discussed for probably about 15 minutes per each army, their idea, a little bit of the lore, a little bit of play style, all that. They kind of did that. They had 2 episodes about it. I listened to both episodes like twice, and I picked Blood Angels. And then I went to a local game store and somehow walked out with a whole bunch of models and tools and about $200 left in my pocket. And I don't know what happened. And then I was into it from there. But you can use the internet as a tool. If you have a local game store, go and see what's popular. Go talk to the people. Obviously, all that kind of stuff. For me, I wasn't really into wargaming at that moment. So I went online. I looked at the resources around it. Obviously, 40K is easier to do than some other ones, but there is resources around. Look for podcasts where people talk about it. Look for the intro, how to start this, why to play this, all this sort of stuff. That's why we do some of those videos. We've done videos about why to play a certain game, especially for Conquest. I went through for every faction and talked about them. So that way, in case you're thinking about starting this, you can learn about it and you can hear about it and you can kind of get an idea if it's for you. So use those sort of resources. Now, for games. Trying to pick some big ones as well as some skirmish games or ones like that. So, and again, this is colored by the fact that of where I live, the games I play, the games I'm interested in, and all of that. I'll explain them a little bit as we need. Other ones I won't. When you take a look at fantasy, obviously you have high fantasy or low fantasy. One thing I will say, because this wasn't originally on my list, I know Middle Earth strategy battles, or however they label it right now, is actually getting another edition. They kind of quiet said that, but it's going to get another edition. I don't know exact timing, but there'll be some articles about that. So if you like Lord of the Rings and all, it might be actually something to look at. The game itself, by all accounts, is really, really good. I just don't know people who play it very much. I know one store, Wargamers Guild. I know a couple guys down there play it. But fantasy, Conquest. To me, Conquest is honestly the top right now for me. Absolutely love the game. I think it's a lot of fun. If you haven't tried it, we have some videos about it. I've done tons and tons of content related to it. Honestly, I really like it. It's ranks and flanks, but there is a skirmish form as well. And it helps that I do like the lore, helps that I like the factions, and it helps that I like the sort of I go, you go style with preset. So at the beginning of the turn, I'm going to set what's going to happen for my army. And I'm going to hope I make some good decisions. And that sort of back and forth and not knowing what your opponent may do, but knowing what it's sort of a chess match. I don't know what you're going to do at every moment, but I know you've had to preset it. So I know you're setting it for what you feel is the best course of action for multiple bits. It goes very much to the chess player in me, where I'm trying to determine 3 to 4 moves ahead. That's essentially what Conquest is, the way that I see it. AOS, obviously, I said I'm working on an Osiris Bone Reapers army. As soon as I'm done this, I have some more spraying to do for them. AOS just got its new edition. I think the new edition is much better than the previous edition. I think they've mitigated some stuff that I don't like double turns and all of that. And I do think they still have some problems. And we talked about endless spells, I think, are absolutely a problem. I did a video about the top 6 and bottom 2 things in the edition. Really, one of them is just my personal preference, but the other one I think is really a big thing. So you can always go back and watch that. But AOS, it's a pretty big game. You can probably find it around maybe in your area, maybe Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Essentially, the old world might be bigger. That's a different thing. I think either one are fine. I do play Fantasy Battle. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound like it's a bad thing in any way, but the models are a bit older. So if you're a person who is, and the gameplay is a little more classic, so if you're a brand new wargamer and you like the methods and looks of newer wargames, you might not like it as much just because it is a little bit more classic and nostalgic, but there's appeal to that as well. There's appeal to me, that's why I have a Tomb King's army. For fantasy, if you're taking a look for something smaller, some other options you obviously have is something, say, like Frostgrave. Frostgrave is Wizards in the Cold, but it's warband based, much smaller. You're looking at, skirmish level. Skirmish to me usually means under 20 models. This is potentially much under, but essentially under 20 models. So you have that as well. What's nice about that is they do have models, but you could probably still be a little agnostic if you want. It's sort of a book, you can kind of go with it. It doesn't require much models, doesn't require much space. Other fantasy things, like I said, I mentioned Bushido. If that's a game that's in your area or of interest, if people like Samurai, that's what it is. It has a very interesting mechanic related to the dice of that you are both doing attack and defense at the same time, and you're deciding how many dice to put towards it. It's a sort of successes system. So what I mean by that is the better I roll, it's more of a comparison to how did you roll rather than a yes, no. And depending on that and some charts, the one kind of meh thing to me at some points about that is the fact that it is another one of those few dice roll type games, but across the game you have quite a few. And it is, I will say, a bit of a challenging game to get down at first. It's a little more complex, I think, than some others for what it has, but a very, very fun game. We look at Sci-Fi. There's obviously 40K. 40K is ubiquitous. I think 10th edition actually pretty good. I just played in a tournament. Probably going to record something about that to discuss it. But the game itself, still pretty good. Shatterpoint. I think Shatterpoint's great. I'm playing that over MCP right now. I almost will play it anytime compared to MCP. Not that I have anything against it, but it's just the game that I'm enjoying a lot more. The nice part about that game is, yes, you can pick up 2 boxes and you are fully legal to play. You can just go out and play that. There's quite a few releases. You can play the sorts of things that you want. They have various timelines. You can synergize or not synergize nearly as much. And Star Wars, who doesn't like Star Wars? I know those people don't. Also, sci-fi related, of course, then you have things like Legion. We already talked about how I'm not as big into Legion personally. But if you like mass scale Star Wars, that is your mass scale Star Wars sort of game. There's plenty of other sci-fi games. We could talk more skirmish. You can talk about Infinity. Infinity is just about to get its N5, its newest edition. They said there's going to be some more cleaning. Infinity has only gotten better as editions have gone on. Earlier editions were just clunky messes. It has gotten a lot more streamlined and nicer and make a lot more sense. It used to be the rule was nested in the rule was nested in the rule. Oh, you had martial arts level 3? Well, that means you had this rule. And this rule means you got this other rule and all that. No, they've removed all that. It just says, oh, you got this? Here's the one thing it does. You have this other rule inbuilt, and you'll see it. So, though I don't play it as often, that's just me personally, it is actually still a very good game. Skirmish level, and they're starting to do some in plastic because I personally don't enjoy metal models. Historicals, you always have bolt action. Bolt action, is you're drawing out from a bag to see who gets to go and who goes when and all of that, and giving someone an order. So it's a little more, it is theoretically I go, you go, but it depends on what gets pulled. It's a little bit more random, and I would say a little bit lighter when you think of the historical level. If you think of like Team Yankee's probably even more so, but I do see bolt action as a little bit lighter. It is not necessarily large scale. It's a little bit more than skirmish, but not really large scale, because you usually talk about a few squads and things like that to put it all together. You're not talking about whole armies and divisions, which is Flames of War. If you really want large scale historicals, that's what Flames of War is, especially if you want historicals to match the history. So they're going to give, okay, if you're taking this particular army force, well, you're taking that because that was the one used in this particular battle and all of that. So you can get very historical with that one. If that's the sort of thing that you enjoy, they got that for you. For things that are newer in terms of history, V for Victory. V for Victory is not exactly large scale, a little bit more I would call skirmish, maybe a little bit more so than bolt action, at least for the level that I've seen it played at. But what's nice about that is it's card-based. So you're rolling dice, but the start is card-based. So what I decide to do is on a card. So maybe I take a card. It has an initiative value of 5. It's going to let a unit move, and 2 other units, say 2 units move, 1 unit shoot. Well, your card has a different initiative. Whoever wins that is the one who does their card first. So the cards that are stronger have worse initiatives. The cards that let you, say, do more shooting or more actions or anything like that. So it's a back and forth of when do I need to go and how much do I need to do. Anything that gives that level of obfuscation that really makes us think and kind of game before a game or game in a game, I like. I think that's the reason why I don't really do much with bolt action, because like, oh, I pulled this. It's on my side. Okay, what do I do now? Where there, I'm actively trying to make decisions before I do the decision then. For Episcale Imperialis, it is a good game. I just don't get to play it. But if you liked old Epic, that's what this is. It's Epic. It's a combination of some different editions of Epic, but it's a cleanup, and it's currently available. If you want something a little more historical, you have things like Hail Caesar. Hail Caesar, you can buy, I noticed on Major Market, you can buy like essentially full armies for 100 some bucks, or some of them quite a bit more. But if you like the old historical, so if you want, large scale historical, that's what Hail Caesar is. I don't know much more about it because personally, don't play it. I don't really know so much, but looking around, that's one of the ones I could find in sort of an epic scale. There's obviously a lot of other historical games. You have Pike and Shot, you have Shaco, all these sorts of ones as well. I know those because some of the people around us play them. If you're trying to convert a board gamer, so if you have someone who plays, or you're looking to get one of your board game players to do miniatures, a few things. One, and again, this is a generalization, and it might not be true for personally, but I've taught and been around thousands upon thousands of board gamers. I've talked to other board game influencers, all kinds of people. And one thing I will say is board gamers don't want to assemble models. Maybe that's the point when they truly cross into war gamers, but if you're trying to get someone interested, you want things with pre-assembled models. I know one board gamer, she was an influencer, had review sites, thousands of reviews, all this kind of stuff, and they sent her some stuff for Guild Ball, and as soon as she realized she had to assemble the stuff, she gave it to someone else who she thought would do it more. Board gamers tend not to be the type who want to assemble their own models. So, games that could be good for them. A Song of Ice and Fire. A Song of Ice and Fire is a great miniature board game. Some people argue at that sort of point, but to me, it does fit a little bit more because it fits more of the war game, board games sort of avenue to me. So what's nice is it's a well-known property, has very distinct factions. It's, has a nice free app to be able to use a bunch of these. If they have apps, great, especially if they have them free. That's one of my biggest problems with GW is that they don't give their apps away for free, or at least the full functionality for free. I really think you should. It's the best way to grow. But has a great app, about to just get a nice refresh, and it has a card mechanic as well. So you have models you're moving, it has a small board you're using, and it has some cards. So it has sort of everything I think a board gamer may enjoy if they enjoy that sort of stuff. Here's a Normandy, or Normandie is how it's spelled in this. I might pronounce differently. What's nice about that is it is a skirmish map level game where you're actually moving tiles. So the tiles are your pieces. So you're on a board moving these tiles around, and they're the ones that are doing different things. It feels exactly like a board game, but it's sort of a nice crossover because you are choosing armies, you're choosing forces and all. So, and there's quite a few releases for it. I don't know if it's still actively made, but I know they're doing reprints of things. Undaunted Normandy or Undaunted Stalingrad. So in that you're using chits to move around and you are playing through different missions. Often the missions are telling you what to bring. It is historical, especially when you think of like Undaunted Stalingrad. It is a great campaign. Undaunted Normandy, also very good, and quite a few extra releases for it. Last one I'll say is Gaslands, because Gaslands, you can just go buy some cars. You can go buy some, I don't know, even, I don't buy stuff for kids anymore, so I'm not sure who produces toy cars anymore, any particular things, but like, some just die-cast cars. And you can get by with that. You need some table space, some cars, you read through the rules, you're good to go. What I like about all those games is they're reasonably simple in terms of the things that you need. They are pre-assembled, pre-ready to go, and they, the two in the middle look more like board games. The first and last a little bit less, but they're still kind of an easy transition. If you're someone brand new to war games, obviously look at that. Look at what's popular in your area. See what people are playing. See what people want to play. And see if you enjoy it. All right, that'll do it for this particular video. This one ran longer than the other one because at the end I want to talk about some different games. Now, let me know in the comments below if there's any games that are new upcoming that you're thinking about getting, or any games just generally starting out. Obviously, like I said, I tried to talk through some of the big ones because they're also the ones that are more likely to be in your area, or more likely to get games in of. I wouldn't want to say, hey, go play this, and you're never going to find anyone to play it, kind of thing. But let me know what's popular in the area. I'm really curious to see what is big in an area that I might not have mentioned because I don't know what's big in all these different areas, especially if you're someone in, not say, the East Coast. What is big where you are? Is there a big following, say, for Drop Fleet or Drop Zone or something like that? I know, especially in Europe, it was bigger because in America, you had a hard time getting models for a long time. Maybe it's better now. Who knows? I personally don't. So let me know those sorts of things. Let me know your thoughts on what are your considerations if you're thinking about starting a new game or if you're thinking about starting wargaming in general. And if people have any other suggestions of things that they want to see, do you want to see more something more generalist or anything like that? Do let me know. I know there's been some requests for more 30K stuff. The big thing for 30K is I don't like doing it on my own. I like to have the other guys around, and I know their lives are a bit crazy right now. So conquest kind of stuff. If there's other games you want discussed or talked about or looked into, that's fine. I'm also today recording a few other videos related to, some related to 40K, some related to Age of Sigmar, and I'm hoping to work on a conquest one as well. I have to see. I have a few other things I have to do, but I do have a few other things that I'm working on as well. We said, if you've been enjoying the content, we have a Patreon that we mentioned down below. That kind of stuff always helps support the show, keeps us open. If you like Conquest, we have, our discount code. I always pump that one more because you get something for that as well, because you get models out of it. You get to save some money and you get something that helps us out as well. So no other companies work or help with us. If they ever do, I'll talk about them and mention them as well. But I am always thankful to Parabellum for the things that they do and the way they support their community and the people who talk about their games. I know other games do as well, but they're the ones who work with us the most, so I'll push them the most. All right, other things we should have for you hopefully coming up. Like I said, I have a few other videos I'm working on. We'll hopefully have some more battle reports somewhat soon. My life's been a little bit too crazy to film them this week and next week. I have some prep stuff I'm doing most nights, so I might not be able to do it then. But I'm hoping after that to get back to doing more battle reports and all. So we should hopefully have some more coming out somewhat soon. All right, well, that'll do it for everyone here at the show then. Have some good hobbying and have some great gaming.